Now I'm very pleased to welcome back two of golf's great handicappers in Mr. Patrick Gates from the Oddsbreakers and Brady Kannon from Sports Grid and the PGA Tour. You can follow them on Twitter at Gator Betting and at Las Vegas Golfer. Well, here we are again. It's like the NCAA tournament ends and the Masters comes right up this way. Kind of fun stuff. How are you doing, guys?
Good to be with you, Kiev. You're right. It's a great time of the year. I mean, just think about the life and career of Jim Nantz. Now, I know he's not calling the Final Four anymore, but for how many decades going from, the Final Four venue to Augusta, and we all as sports fans and sports bettors kind of enjoy that vicariously, watching the Final Four and then on to the Masters. But boy, yeah, that transition, I think it's one of the best 2 weeks in sports, and I guess you can include the entire tournament. But yeah, the NCAA basketball tournament and the Masters is a beautiful combination.
Without a doubt, man. It was so exciting. That's where kind of everyone starts to catch up a little bit. I know sharp guys like you both have been on it since the January when the stuff's really coming in. And then right after Christmas, it kind of starts for you. And both of you have those wonderful articles out there. But here we are, and it's a field that's a little bit smaller. I feel. Brady, why is that? Why is it a smaller event, I would say, for the number of actual golfers?
Yeah, the Masters is always somewhere probably in the neighborhood of, say, 80 to 100 players. This year you have 96, I believe, is the latest count. I saw Vijay Singh withdrew with injury, a former champion, but I think that brings us to 96. But it's different from a traditional PGA Tour event where you might have 120, 140, 156, because there are different ways that one has to, satisfy as far as qualifying. You have to be a top 50 player in the world rankings. If you've won a tournament in the past year, that gets you an invitation to the Masters. Of course, if you're a past champion, and then there's other, qualifications as well. If you won the Players Championship, or if you won the British Open 5 years ago, I think that's a 5-year exemption into the Masters. So not you can't qualify to get in. You can't play a practice round and shoot 61 and oh boy, you made it. No, you have to accomplish something to be invited into this very exclusive field. And truth is, there's not many people that aren't here. I really can't think of one off the top of my head that is not participating, that isn't a major player in the game today.
Yeah, that's great. And, that's what we want to see is the best out there. And that's kind of leads me to my next question, and both of you can answer this. Since last year, I mean, obviously the Live Tour is relatively new. Is there a larger separation between the guys on the PGA Tour and then the Live Tour? What are your thoughts, Brady?
No, I think it's probably, I think the gap has probably shrunk. I think initially when there was this, what do you want to call it, separation or parting of the ways where, the Live circuit was formed and guys were defecting and what have you. I think there was a great deal of animosity and there was a cavernous gap, I think, in a lot of different ways. And now we've seen unfortunately, moving at the pace of a turtle, they're trying to come together and unite the two leagues and come to some sort of agreement where they can coexist so we can get the best players playing, maybe not necessarily every week, but more than 4 times a year. And now, President Trump has been involved. And my prediction is that because of President Trump's love for the game of golf and his dealings with both the PGA Tour and the Saudis and yada, yada, Trump Doral, just his course last week was used for a Live event. I think during his term, this 4-year term, I think Trump's going to find a way to expedite this reunification, if you will. I think it is going to happen. It needs to happen sooner rather than later. I thought maybe the 2026 golf season would see the coming together of the two leagues. Maybe that's still possible, but But I think as far as the negotiations, the mood in the room, everything, I believe Kiev is closer than when it started. And I think it continues to get progressively closer. And hopefully we don't have to wait that much longer to where we can have guys like Brooks Koepka and Dustin Johnson and Cameron Smith and, you know, these guys in the fields that we watch and bet on a regular basis.
So there you go. I got to do sign executive order. There you go. And then you know, make some come together. It's that easy. Patrick, what are your thoughts? Do you agree that there's less separation, as Brady said?
Yeah, I think in terms of the separation, the animosity, I'd say, between the two sides, the PGA and the Live Tour, has certainly died down, at least on the player side. You heard Jon Rahm speak today and kind of coming towards that point of saying, yes, we're disappointed in the progress. We'd hope there'd kind of be a rough structure of a deal where these two parties would come together and form kind of one cohesive tour. But it seems that Liv's pretty adamant on continuing the Live Tour. PGA Tour obviously wants everyone back on one tour. The Live is saying no. And the PGA Tour actually just rejected a $1.5 billion kind of integration of money from the PIF. So I don't think any deal is close to being done. And I think you're starting to see some of these Live guys who've signed these 3-4 year deals coming up on expiration being like, we kind of went over here expecting there to be a deal in place in the next year or two, and we'd come back and either pay a fine or kind of right the wrongs of them going over there in the first place. And that hasn't been the case yet. So it's a very, very interesting structure. I know Brooks has kind of hinted that he's looking to possibly return. Jon Rahm has said that as well. There's obviously a few of the top name players that are kind of planning on sticking with Live, but it is very interesting to kind of see what the next course of action is in terms of both sides. And another thing too, you'd mentioned before, the field size. Last year, heading into this event, we had Akshay win the Valero Texas Open, getting another spot into this field as well. The sponsor or the special invitations, there were 3 last year. Now we're down to 2. And the amount of Live golfers have also dropped by 1. So I think the field's roughly the same size, but definitely I think a few players short compared to last year's event.
Okay. A little short animosity. That's some really good points. He almost feels like if you lose some of those guys, if Live loses them back to the PGA, it's almost like Live might turn into kind of like a minor league program almost in a way. And then if you're one of those big names still getting paid there and stuck, you're kind of like, oh man, this is not helping my numbers, you know, being in with it being looked like that. I personally don't think the Live is really caught up in popularity. I don't watch a lot of it. I think the Live is the one that should be making the move here. Otherwise, it's just going to be a money pit. But that's, you know, definitely not my specialty. Just some of my 2 cents on that situation. But we're talking Masters, man. There is some amazing golf course here at Augusta, and I wish I was there, to be honest. Yeah, I said here at Augusta, what we're talking about. I do have 2 buddies there that's rubbing it in right now. They are texting me and all that. But Patrick, could you go over some of the course information on this wonderful event?
Yeah, every year it seems like Augusta is getting longer and longer. And I think that's kind of trying to combat what we've seen the past few years, especially off the tee. These guys keep increasing their distance. So now from last year, the course has increased 10 yards to 7,555 from the previous year. Number 2 is the one that changed. That tee box got moved 10 yards back. Again, Augusta's one of a kind when kind of looking at comparable courses this week. You're maybe going to look at the Genesis Invitational, which is at Riviera, the Plantation course at Kapalua. But there are very few courses that can kind of match up to Augusta National. It is, like we had talked about before, a second shot golf course in here. And there's several ways to win, as kind of evident by the past few winners. Cam Smith certainly had a unique way of winning. Not Cam Smith. Patrick Reed used his short game to his advantage on this course for sure, compared to a few of the other guys that kind of took advantage off the tee. Really not much else to say about that.
Okay. That's great. And it's just a long course, man. just can't imagine how far those tips seem. Well, where you're hitting. And I've also heard that it's hillier than people think. It's doesn't this course favor the left-handed, like the Bubba Watsons of the world, Brady?
Yeah, what's interesting, guys, it's really a beast as far as a golf course, a par 72, and as Patrick said, over 7,500 yards. Um, it doesn't necessarily favor left-handers, but there is a lot of emphasis on, let's start with a right-hander who hits a right to left ball flight, a draw. Okay, a lot of the holes set up that way to favor that kind of shot shape. So a left-hander, that would be a fade, going from right to left. And I think for a lot of people, I think it's more common. A fade shot is more common. I think it's easier to control. But that's why we've seen a lot of guys that draw the golf ball, right-handed players, do well at Augusta. But the truth is, you really have to be able to work your ball both ways. A lot of the tee shots will set up from right to left, and then you're out there in the fairway, and it's asking you really to hit a left to right. So you can't just necessarily have one stock shot and expect to have a great deal of success around this golf course. But one of the interesting things too, that really makes this golf course play even longer than a traditional or a normal 7,500 yard track is the mowing pattern. They mow the grass, when they manicure these fairways and everything, they mow the grass in a direction back towards the tee, so the ball doesn't roll out as much. If you're kind of down grain, if you will, that ball is going to tend to roll more. They roll it into the grain, if you will, and so that ball is going to come up shorter than it may normally. So that some people say this thing plays closer to 7,900 yards just because of that fact. So I don't really know for sure. I'm like you, Kiev. I'd love to be there right now, but I'm not, and so I can't say for sure. But that's a lot about the research I read, and no, I think it's absolutely true. Does it truly play to 79? I don't know, but yeah, you're not getting as much run out on these drives because of the mowing pattern, and that's obviously intentional.
Interesting, the mowing pattern, and something I never would have thought about. That is, yeah. I mean, there's just so many little intricacies that you can look into these events, and that's why reading your articles is such a great thing to do when you're handicapping these when these events, when you're sports betting on these events, right? You might find something in a little nugget there that a little bit some about a golfer, and it could benefit you. Another nugget, weather, that always factors in. There's some mudders out there, as we like to say, some horse racing terms, but there's some guys that are pretty good in the rain. But how's the weather, Brady, this weekend for this event?
Well, thank goodness, knock on wood here, it's supposed to be pretty nice. It looks like we're going to have a glorious Masters. And that's, I think, the Masters we all want to see. There has been some rain in the area early in the week. I believe it was on Monday and maybe early Tuesday, overnight Tuesday, something like that, it rained pretty good. And that kind of goes into what we're talking about of making the golf course longer as well. If it's not firm and fast, that tends to benefit the longer hitters because you're not going to get as much run out. So not only the mowing patterns, but if it's soft as well. But the breezes don't look too nasty. It looks like for the most part, we're going to have wind around 10 miles an hour or less. I think there was one day where maybe it's going to reach 15 miles an hour, but nothing too crazy. Temperatures in the low 70s. And I think by the time we get to Thursday, you probably won't have much of that moisture in the golf course any longer. I said it earlier, I think God actually runs Augusta National. He controls the weather. I mean, they can make anything happen here. But the truth is, they have so much technology and sub-air systems beneath the surface, under the fairways, under the greens. They can suck out, they can do whatever they want to the moisture almost. Now, if it just rains cats and dogs, there's nothing you can do about that. But again, with it raining a little bit early in the week and then not so much later on, I think with those systems that Augusta National has, they'll be able to get that golf course exactly where they want it. And I think for the most part, they're going to want it firm and fast. The greens will be firm, and you'll get shots repelled, and and they're going to probably have it exactly where they want it. And the good thing is the weather it seems to be cooperating, so they can create that golf course that they want.
Well, there you go. Patrick, anything to add on that, or would you like to jump right into the key statistics that you're looking for when handicapping the course?
Yeah, I mean, Augusta, unfortunately, was in the path of Hurricane Helene earlier this year, too, and over 1,000 trees got ripped out at Augusta. Obviously, like Brady said before, the grounds crew at Augusta is second to none. Most of those trees have been replaced as is, but there have been a few comments from players in the practice round saying they do notice some barren areas, which could again create some new wind patterns that these guys necessarily aren't expecting this week. So just another something to watch out for. In terms of key stats this week, we'll jump right into it. The main one, tee to green, which combines, off the tee, approach, and around the green. Each of the past 4 winners have ranked second or better in this category. Approach play, each of the past 4 winners have ranked 14th or better. Strokes gained around the green, each of the past 4 winners have ranked 7th or better. So those are the main strokes gained categories that you're going to look for this week. In terms of the putting surfaces, they're rolling at about a 13 or 14, which are the fastest that will face this season. So you're not just looking at your bent grass putters, you're looking at your bent grass putters with that green speed set to fast. So that's kind of a key nugget when you're breaking down those putters. Lag putting, again, is huge at this course. So 3-putt avoidance. And we've kind of seen that transition, as I mentioned before, to driving distance really playing a factor in these past few winners. Scotty, Rahm, DJ, all bombers off the tee who have had success here. The primary par 4 scoring is going to fall between 450 and 500 yards. The par 4s aren't necessarily holes that players are looking to birdie, but rather just par and kind of move on to their main scoring opportunities, which are those par 5s. The majority of those range from 550 to 600 yards. And as always, bogey avoidance is crucial here. So those are kind of the main stats that I have. And again, Augusta, one of the most predictive courses that players will face this year. So course history is everything, especially at this event.
Well, there you go. Course history is huge. And that's some interesting nuances you said about the hurricane. So I wonder, how people do look at some of the wind tunnels approach to the green and things like that. That's amazing stuff. What about you, Brady? Any thoughts on the key stats that you look for when betting this event?
Well, we're afforded the luxury of playing the same golf course year in and year out. The only one of the 4 majors that plays the same course every year. So we're able to build a great deal of course history. The Masters trends, the historical trends are, endless, because again, we played this course. This is the 89th Masters edition. So you have these. And it's basically the same golf course, as Patrick alluded to. They continue to add length and keep it modernized and updated to the game of a particular era. But for the most part, it's been the same skill sets over the years that have always been most important or most translating into winning. Now, it did change a little bit years ago when they quote unquote Tiger proofed it, because Tiger brought this course to its knees many years ago when he was kind of one of the first guys to really hit the ball a mile. And that's when they really accelerated the change to the length of the course and everything. And that, like Patrick talked about, that's really when it became more so a second shot golf course. A lot of, I think in years past, it was about hit it as far as you can and find a white hot putter on these amazingly fast greens. And now much more about approach play has come into play here. Tee to green, like Patrick mentioned, very, very important. I would say for me, if I had to just pick 2 skill sets at Augusta, and it's any major championship, guys, you've got to do everything well. Okay, you got to chip, you got to putt, you got to do it all well. But I think at Augusta, if I had to just pick two areas where I wanted my guy to do really well on for the week, it would be par four scoring, like Patrick talked about. Those par fours, most of them are 450 to 500 yards. The par fives around here, everybody's probably going to make a birdie or two, maybe even better. But if you can take advantage of the par fours and not let them, get you in terms of making double bogeys and stuff, if you can have a good week around the par fours, you're going to separate yourself or should separate yourself from the field. And the other area is scrambling. We don't often see golf courses like this where the greens are raised above, ground level. They have tremendous amount of elevation, the speed being so fast that we've talked about. And when you miss a green in regulation, the balls are going to roll off onto these, shaved runoff areas and collect in these very tight lie areas. You're not going to see any shots around the greens out of the rough like we typically see week to week on the PGA Tour. So these players are faced with chip shots around the green surfaces that they're not used to. They take an incredible amount of creativity. They take an enormous, deft touch. You just have to have magic hands around these greens, not just the putting, but even maybe more so the scrambling, like I say, to be able to get up and down. So everything Patrick said, the distance off the tee, the approach play. But I think if I had to whittle it down to just a couple of really important areas, it's the scrambling, your work around the greens, the chipping, and the par four scoring. Those are going to be two, I think, of the more emphasized areas of skills in my handicap.
Would that mean you kind of just in general look at shots gained approach to the green?
Well, that's basically iron play. Yeah, strokes gained approach is, basically how close you're hitting the ball to the hole. Greens in regulation, that all comes into play there. Par four scoring is just how well you're doing on par fours in general. And then the scrambling, like I say, that's specifically the work around the greens where you're trying to get up and down for par or better.
Okay, yeah. And there's stats on the scrambling, there's stats on the putting, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
tee to green, as Patrick mentioned, and everything. So that's the stuff that we try to look into it. But some of these obviously hot golfers right now do it best. Quick shout out to Matt Saint too. Thanks for checking in. Matt's a great guy, contest winner. Met him in Las Vegas. He knows you as well, Brady. So thanks for chiming in, Matt. And we have some favorites here, Patrick. It's I'm not shocked when I see the top three, buddy. Can you tell us who the favorites are for this event?
Yeah, obviously, as he's accustomed to at this point, Scotty Scheffler leads us at 4-1 at the top of the board here. He has won in 2 of the past 3 years, but this is a different Scotty we've seen this year. Obviously, suffered that injury over Christmas and has not won on tour this season. He has kind of started to round into form, which is always scary at Augusta. He finished T2 in his last start in Houston. Besides that, Rory is the guy to watch this week. As always, looking for that career Grand Slam. Has already won twice on the tour this year. Feels like Rory's year. But again, we'll see. He is the second favorite. And then John Rahm, strong season on LIV this year, coming off a T9 at LIV Miami. Hasn't won on the LIV Tour this year, but has found kind of a more consistent play from his game after struggling last year. And again, another former champion at Augusta. Next guy, who I think he's the talk of the town along with Rory this week, is Colin Morikawa. Ranks highly in nearly every key stat this week. You're getting him at a fairly bettable number. But again, we've seen him already once this year at the API just faltered down the stretch. So that's the biggest thing for Colin Morikawa this week is, can he close out a tournament? I don't know. I didn't back him this week for that reason. I was on him at the Arnold Palmer Invitational and he burned me. But I just couldn't back him again this week. So those are kind of your 4 top guys this week.
Well, funny you mentioned because I did bet. My only bet is on Morikawa at like 18-1, and I actually have him top 5 at plus 340. So I got some value there, my friends. It's plus
Yeah.
280 now. So there you go, doing the right things. But it's funny. I just looked at the shots or strokes gained. I said shots before approach to the green, and Morikawa's sitting there up top. But if you got the Rory issue, that he just doesn't finish at the Masters or big events, and obviously that's the other thing. I don't see why someone would bet Rory over Morikawa because I don't know. I just feel like they kind of had the same issue there as a little bit. What's the prop on Scheffler getting arrested before the event? Maybe we can find one at 500 to 1 or something. I know Scheffler had a baby last year, I think it was, or recently, and that always takes a little bit off your golf game. I know by my own history myself. Your time, your thoughts and your time, obviously, but your thoughts definitely drift to other more important situations. Yep, these are definitely the favorites. Why don't we talk about some of the sleepers then? And I'll ask you too, Patrick, but Brady, who are some of the sleepers in this event that maybe some people are talking about, or maybe you have a couple in mind?
Yeah, I actually have 9 guys for an outright win in this Masters, and that is probably a ridiculous amount to play in the outright market. But the truth be told, I really have 6 plays, which is a pretty normal number. Week to week on the PGA Tour, I typically play 5, 6, 7 guys, to win. Obviously, you can't pick them all. The more you pick, the more you start to dive into your profit if you're hitting one or what have you. So 9 is a big number, but 3 of those plays are kind of just shots in the dark, triple digit odds guys. And so that kind of ties into, your sleeper category. The Masters, we talked about the size of the field being, 90, 95 guys typically. A lot of those guys are former champions. A lot of those guys are making their very first ever appearance here. When you whittle it down, there's really, some people might argue 20, 30, 40 guys, maybe at the most, that can really win this. And Patrick talked about it being the most predictive golf tournament there is. Now, it doesn't mean it's easy, but it is easier. It's relatively easy because you're shrinking the field. Realistically, you've maybe got 40 guys that can truly win it. It typically goes to the chalk. The cream rises to the top here. John Rahm, Dustin Johnson, Scotty Scheffler. These guys are the favorites. Tiger Woods, okay? The last time we had a triple-digit priced long shot win was Charles Schwartzel in 2011. So again, I have 6 guys that are 60 to 1 or less, and I have 3 guys that are all 100 to 1 or better. So those are my, I don't necessarily say I'm on 9 outrights because 3 of them are for a very small amount of risk. But those would be my sleepers. And first of all, Justin Rose, who I got at 110 to 1. I've seen higher. I've seen 130 to 1. Has had 2 runner-up finishes here. He's literally played here 20 times. He has course form. He has course history. He's got current form. He's got 2 top 10 finishes already this season in signature events. If you go back over the last 10 years or so at Augusta National, he's been one of the very best putters on these greens. He's got those magic hands around the greens. He's great out of the bunkers. And he's got the course knowledge. So he checks a great number of boxes. He's been first round leader here at least a couple times. And that's another thing about this tournament. You have to get out to a hot start. I want to say it's like, I don't know, 10 of the last 12 winners have all been in the top 10 or top 12 after day one. And you can keep extending that trend. The point is, like Tiger Woods, I think in the last 30 years, Tiger Woods got off to the worst start and still went on to win, and that was like 33rd. Basically, if you're not in the top 15 or something after day one, you're really up against it. So, it goes to the favorites. It goes to the chalk. You don't have as many long shots. You got to get out to a hot start. Justin Rose has done all of that. So at triple digits, took a flyer with him. The other two, their prices have come down quite a bit. Patrick Reed and Sergio Garcia. I bet them last week. I got Sergio at 125 to 1, and I got Patrick Reed at 115. Sergio Garcia has been one of the hottest golfers in the world for the last couple months. He won in Hong Kong 4 weeks ago on the LIV circuit. He just finished runner-up in Doral. Of course, he has a Masters victory. Just playing really some of the best golf of his career, or the best golf in a long time since he won here in 2017. Now, the fly in the ointment is, since he won in 2017, he's been awful. He's been here 6 times since that victory, and he's missed the cut 5 times, 5 out of those 6. But again, I couldn't ignore his current form. And then Patrick Reed, basically the same thing. He played a few weeks ago on the Asian Tour in an attempt to qualify for the British Open, and he did. He finished 2nd. So the International Series in Macau, a good result there. Got out to the lead on the first day at Doral, a course he's won at when he was a member of the PGA Tour, ended up finishing top 5 last week at LIV Miami. Now, the difference between he and Sergio is, since Patrick Reed won in 2018, he's been phenomenal in follow-up appearances. He's had 3 top 10s, and last year he finished 12th. So he has continued to play this course at a very high level. His short game is magnificent. He ranks, over the last 36 rounds, he ranks number 1 in this field for scrambling. So those were my 3 long bombs: Justin Rose, Sergio Garcia, and Patrick Reed. Are they going to win it? Probably not. But I think they're all really good bets to finish top 20.
Yeah, I mean, plus 400 for Sergio, top 20, top 5, plus 1,000, 10 to 1. You know, I've learned the hard way that if I'm betting the winner, I have to bet at least top 5, because I'm not going to get screwed over at the end, man. I want to cash on some of this stuff. And what's up, Tom Rye Cape over there, checking in. Nice things to say about Brady. We're doing well. Thank you. Thanks for checking in. SK is asking us who prevents the most value. Well, you just gave us 3 sleepers, man. So I mean,
yeah, those are pretty good ones.
I think those are pretty good ones in a great way to answer that question. Well, Patrick, you know, I guess we didn't ask Brady's favorites that he likes, but let's just talk sleepers, then we'll get your favorites. Patrick, who's your sleepers in this course?
Yeah, I really like Patrick Reed this week. I took him top 20 at plus 175. To echo what Brady said too, in terms of a guy who's just presented unbelievable consistency at this course, he has to rank near the top during that span. Another sleeper that I like this week is Corey Connors. I took him to finish inside the top 20. His distance off the tee is not great, which is kind of, I think, the limiting factor for him this week to win. I do like him to finish inside the top 20, though. He has been terrific lately. 3rd at the Arnold Palmer, 6th at the Players, 8th at the Valspar, and T18 at the Valero Texas Open last week. He struggled on Sunday, but still managed to finish inside the top 20 there. In terms of the Masters history, Connors hasn't been great the past 2 years, but this is the best form that he's been in a very long time. And going back to 2022 to 2020, he had 3 consecutive top 10 finishes at this course, which means he knows how to score here. And so I'm kind of putting a lot of weight into his recent form and the fact that he's shown he can play at this course and do well here. So I like Corey Connors top 20. He's one of my sleepers this week. And again, I think his distance off the tee is the major limiting factor for him winning this tournament, but I do think he plays well this week.
All right, Corey Connors top 20 plus 330 on DK, but man, that Reed one, it's 90 to 1 now, not 175 to 1. So you got some great value on Reed. And Tom wants to know if there's any love for Russell Henry, who was sitting at 55 to 1. I'd like to ask about Dustin Johnson a little bit. I see you smiling, so you must answer that, Patrick. What are your thoughts on Henley and then Johnson?
We'll start with Dustin Johnson here. Not a great season on LIV this year. Only 1 top 5, which came at Singapore. Finished T27 at LIV Miami this week. His putting just seems to be a major issue for him this year. His irons really haven't followed through. still has that distance off the tee, which again could be a factor this week if the course does kind of play slow, especially in those fairways. But I have no love for Dustin Johnson this week. I'm sorry to break it to you, Brady, or not Kiev, excuse me. I know, Kiev, you're a big Dustin Johnson guy, but I can't back him this week. And just going back to his last two starts here, missed the cut last year and finished T48 in 2023. So I'm completely fading Dustin Johnson this week.
130 to 1, and you're not the only one. I think he's dropped a little bit actually. So I think I won when he won. I think it was this event he won. I thought it was. It was either this or
yep. He's a former champion.
Yeah, so I think I did well that year. So once I bet on someone that wins, I become a fan. That's very true, Patrick.
I don't think he's the worst. Where that price is starting to drift to. You had a member of the audience there ask about where the best value is, and we were talking about plays we've made in the triple digit area on Sergio and Reed and whatnot. DJ at like 150. That's not bad. And Patrick talked about, his recent finishes. He probably played better at Doral than what his end result indicated. He has been showing some signs. Is it going to turn into a win? I doubt it. But that number's, maybe you play him for a top 40. I don't think that's the worst bet you could make. And then Russell Henley, I'm actually on Henley, Kiev. I got him at 60 to 1. I've seen him as low as 40. And I think that's great value as well. I think Russell Henley, like if you're looking at guys that are on the odds board there, kind of in that 35 to 45 neighborhood, you're talking about Brooks Koepka, Tommy Fleetwood, Hideki Matsuyama. I think Henley is right there in that same breath of, or same conversation. And so I think I've seen him as high as 55. I was able to get 60. I'm not exactly sure what it's still out there. I've seen basically anywhere from 40 to 60. I think anything 45 or better is very good value on a guy. Patrick, of course, you can attest. He's quietly been one of the best players in the world the last couple of years. He just won at Bay Hill, probably the best win of his entire career, winning on a big boy golf course. This is a guy that is a shorter hitter, very much accuracy based. He and Colin Morikawa, both a couple of the most accurate hitters in the world. And it was just a couple of years ago that Henley finished 4th here at Augusta. He also checks a couple of boxes. These are some interesting trends. We talked about the trends being endless at the Masters because we play the same course and yada, yada. 11 of the last 13 winners have had a win in their last 6 starts. 12 of the last 13 winners have finished in the top 15 at one of the prior year's major championships. Russell Henley is a part of both of those groups. He had the win at Bay Hill, and last year he finished 7th at the U.S. Open at Pinehurst and 5th at the Open Championship at Royal Troon. So, again, very quietly, he's not a flashy Jordan Spieth and Victor Hovland, and he's one of those relative unknowns maybe for a lot of people out there. This guy is really good, and he made my card this week at 60 to 1.
All right, well there's the answer. Henley 60 to 1. Any other favorites before I go to Patrick, Brady, that you like?
Well, I'll work backwards. I talked about the 3 long shots, the triple digit guys, more sleepers, shots in the dark. And then I mentioned Henley at 60. He's my longest shot out of what I call my main bets. The next shortest shot I went to was Tommy Fleetwood, who I got back in February at 50. Now he is now in the neighborhood of 35 or 40, which I still don't have a problem with, especially 40. The problem with Tommy Fleetwood is he has not won in the United States. He has not won on the PGA Tour. He's won multiple times all over the world, but he is that good as well. And I think, his odds of being 35-ish to 1 are well-deserved. He's maybe having one of the best years of his career. If he made the cut at the Valero Texas Open last week, did not finish very well, but you kind of wonder, is that just a glorified practice round for him to get a couple more reps in before he goes to the Masters? Prior to that, he hadn't finished worse than 22nd all season. And we're talking about a 5th place finish at Torrey Pines. Also the work on the correlated courses, like Patrick talked about, Riviera Country Club. Tommy's finished 10th and 20th there. St. Andrews, the old course, has also shown incredible correlation to success at Augusta National. And in the 2022 British Open, Fleetwood finished 4th there. He had his best finish ever at the Masters last year, finishing 3rd. He's played, this will be his 9th Masters. He's made the cut 8 times in a row. So one of these days, this guy's going to get a win. And again, in the neighborhood of 40-1, I don't think he's a bad bet at all. And after that, I went to Koepka at 35. And then on down to Matsuyama at 25, Morikawa, and Matsuyama you can find even higher now. Morikawa I got at 22. I still don't think he's a bad bet at 16 or so. And then my shortest shot, one of the 4 favorites Patrick talked about, I did land on Jon Rahm at 16-1. And again, I go back to the question about the member of the audience asked about value. I'm surprised Rahm isn't 12-1. I think 16 is pretty good value. I would expect Jon Rahm this guy just won a couple years ago here.
Yeah.
He's played 18 events on the Live Tour. He's won twice. He's finished top 10 every single time. So, 16-1 feels like a pretty valuable number to me on one of the best players in the world.
He's dropping 13-1 on DraftKings. You can shop that.
Wow.
I've seen some 14-1s on him last night when I was prepping. So there you go. Jon Rahm is an interesting price because of Scheffler's issues, and Scheffler's 4-1. I would much rather bet Rahm. Patrick, do you agree? Any other favorites that you like? You can start with Rahm if you like.
Yeah, so I landed on Jon Rahm as well this week. Again, his recent form hasn't won on the Live Tour, but has shown tremendous consistency during that span. Ranks highly in a few key categories this week as well. And Rahm necessarily, unlike the next guy, hasn't really shown tremendous consistency at Augusta. After he won, kind of struggled a little bit last year. But at 13-1, he fits this course well, has proven he can win here, and I really like that number on him. Question for Brady, is Xander at 22-1? Obviously, we talk about value, guys kind of up that leaderboard, but at Xander at 22-1, could he arguably be the guy with the best value? He won 2 majors last year, obviously struggling coming off that injury, but just had his best finish of T12 this season. It feels like, I believe last year too at this tournament, he was 14 or 13-1. Are we getting some great value on Xander this year?
I think we are. And believe me, I've taken a hard look and 25-1 I may have seen. It's It's hard to pass that up. He did also lead the field in strokes gained approach in his last event. So it tells you that the irons were firing, but he also lost strokes on the green. And, the reason we're dealing with this Kiev is because he was injured for most of the year. I think he played at Kapalua and then he was off for about the next 8 weeks. And he probably could have come back a little bit sooner, but was really just wanting to be completely healed so he would not, suffer any setback leading into Augusta. It's all been about the Masters, which it is for so many guys the first, 2-3 months of the season. But Patrick, while that number looks good and there probably is some value there, I don't think he's had enough reps to win the Masters. We talked about, the iron plays real good, but the putter, is he going to be able to put it all together for 4 days, having only been back on tour for a few weeks? I don't think so. You give me 40-1, maybe I got a sprinkle, but
yeah.
To answer your question, I still think it's pretty good value, but I'm not going to go there with him. I decided against it despite the drift in the price, because I just don't know if he can overcome what has set him back so far this year. Unfortunately, he's absolutely in play for the rest of the majors this season, but I don't think he gets this one.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Schauffele, numbers getting kind of cute there, it sounds like, according to Patrick. So it's always the worst, and this is my paranoia speaking. I slammed the guy. I decided not to do it, and then all of a sudden he wins. That would just be the irony that we all get from being sports bettors here. But I guess we have to bet these all the way till Sunday, really, because live betting is something that sometimes I like to do. The hope is that Scheffler is 7 behind on Saturday morning, and then Scotty Scheffler shows up and the rest crumble, because I think the Masters, like you guys said before, is about chalk, and it's like I think that taking the long shot, or I'm sorry, the favorite early is just a mistake, because it's not like his price is going to get that much worse. It's like if Scheffler is up by 2 strokes, it's going to be plus 300, plus 200 after a day or two, and I would definitely not want that, because it could just fall apart from there. So, is that a strategy that you guys like to use? Maybe have your bets out there for some better numbers, and maybe take a Saturday morning or Friday morning even bet on some of these favorites that dropped a little. And I'll ask you, Brady, first.
I usually don't get involved in the live market until I've seen 36 holes completed. I don't necessarily like to jump in after the first round. I kind of equate that to like the first quarter of a football game. And sometimes the first quarter of a football game might lend itself to greater live betting opportunities. But with a golf tournament, I like to see 2 full rounds. The one round of golf can be very random. So I like to see 2 full rounds, and I have made bets at the halfway point before successfully. We'll see what happens, but I think one piece of advice for live betting, and you can look all these trends up. They're not hard to find, I don't believe. This is not a catch-up golf tournament. I alluded to it earlier. If you're not in the top 10, top 12, top 15 after day 1, your chances are very, very small of going on to win. You've got to get out to a good start. The other situation is being more than like 3 or 4 shots back on Sunday. It just doesn't happen. Very rarely do guys come off of the path. You talk about Scotty being 7 back on Saturday. Maybe you don't want him to be 7 back on Sunday. It's not going to happen. It just and most of the times, the final pairing is where the winner comes from. Yeah. So hot start, be in the mix the entire time. Don't fall too far behind. Those are typically the guys that go on to win this thing. And you can kind of use that when you're making your selections in live betting.
And you agree, Patrick?
Yeah, I would certainly agree here. One of the angles I'm definitely going to take this week, I know Max Homa to miss the cut is certainly a popular pick this week. New caddy change. He has just been downright awful this year, to put it bluntly. Matthew Fitzpatrick, again, another guy who has a caddy change going into this week. Max Homa to miss the cuts around minus 130, minus 120 this week. A way I'm going to kind of attack these guys that I'm looking to fade is taking their first round over strokes. You're going to get better odds on it. And you're not going to have to kind of lay that minus 130, minus 135 that you're looking at for these guys to miss the cut. So that's certainly a live angle that I'm looking to explore.
I like it. I couldn't believe, I think I saw Homa at like 250 to 1 or something like that to win it. I mean, that's how insane. Bad he's been this year. Yeah. A guy that finished, I think, 3rd last year.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Interesting. Fading. That's one thing that I didn't even think about asking, but it's a big thing, and that's kind of a fun thing. It's like betting against the shooter on the craps table. I remember one time I was done with a business meeting, and I had a suit and tie on, and I went to a craps table at a casino, and everyone was fading me because I had a suit and tie. Like, Jesus, man, because like I'm really a nice guy. I just have to wear this. But that's funny. The fading part is kind of cute too, and I know that Phil Mickelson, and especially Tiger Woods, would have pretty good numbers fading because everyone would bet on them, right? And so in the past, missing the cut has been, interesting bets when it comes to, these, I guess, overblown guys, let's say. I guess that leads me to, Patrick, how are you constructing your ticket? Are you betting any matchups? You already gave us some of your plays, and we can definitely see more of them on the article that you wrote, but how are you planning on betting this event this weekend?
Yeah, the Masters is certainly one of these events where you're a little overexposed, and it happens to the best of us, and it certainly happened to me this week. I usually like to risk around a unit to win eight, as most bettors do, around that 7 to 8 range in return for an outright. I'm a little overexposed, around 1.5 units this week, but it is the majors, and that's kind of to be expected. It is kind of a one-off. It's not your Valero Texas Open like last week, where you really have to kind of narrow in that card. So I have 6 outright this week. I have Rahm at 16-1, Xander at 22-1, Brooks at 30-1, Shane Lowry at 45-1, Russell Henley at 55-1, and Robert McIntyre at 60-1. I have a few top 20 bets: Cantlay, Connors, and Reed. And then in terms of a matchup, the one that I took is actually a pretty interesting one. It's Nikolai Højgaard over his twin brother, Rasmus Højgaard. Both brothers haven't really been in terrific form as of late. Both have kind of missed the cuts in their recent events. But Nikolai did play in the Masters last year, where he finished T16. He was actually leading after 10 holes in the third round. You're getting that at -125. Nikolai also ranks better in a few key categories this week in terms of his approach play, his putting, his 3-putt avoidance, par 5 scoring, and kind of that long iron play as well. So I like Nikolai to finish over his brother Rasmus, mainly due to the fact that experience is everything here. He played here last year. He did well. So that's one of the matchups that I'm taking.
You have a best bet on the card, or just kind of like your bets?
Best bet on the card.
On your card right now.
I really like Patrick Reed, top 20. That's
Okay.
probably my favorite bet this week.
Okay, Patrick Reed, top 20 right now. You can get that at +450. You probably have a better number, but hey, still 4.5
Is that top
to 1
10?
right now.
Top?
Oh, geez,
Is that top
that
10
might
or
be.
top 20?
Oh, yeah, my fault. That was under top 10. You know, we don't. The top 20 is on a different screen here, so
Yep.
and it's
Plus 175.
Yeah.
Plus 175. Yeah.
Yeah.
Patrick
Okay,
and I both have Reed for a top 20 at plus 175.
Yeah.
I like that bet a lot too.
Yeah.
Okay. And so is that your best bet too, Brady?
Well, gosh, I certainly like it a lot. Let's see, what else do I have? I think Tommy Fleetwood for a top 20 is a really solid bet. I like. I have Russell Henley for a top 20. I think that feels pretty good. I went over the outrights quickly. I'll say it again. Rahm was my shortest shot at 16. Morikawa, I bet a long time ago at 22. I still don't have a problem with 14, 16, whatever. Matsuyama, I have at 25. Koepka, I have at 35. Fleetwood, I have at 50. I don't mind 35 or 40. And Henley, I have at 60. And then I have the 3 long bombs, Rose, Reed, and Sergio at triple digits. I've also played each of these guys for a top 20 finish. I played Rahm and Morikawa, my shortest shots. I played for a top 10. I got Rahm at plus 130 and Morikawa at plus 130 for a top 10. They were too expensive for a top 20 for me. They were both minus 200 or so. And I really like that bet. I think that would be a great bet to make as well. But I went ahead and got a little bit better price and gambled with a top 10. The rest of the guys I played top 20. And I have not yet looked at all of the head-to-head matchups yet. And I'm sure I'll probably add, I would say at least 2 or 3, but I haven't gotten there yet. I've been spending so much time on the outright market and the finish position markets. The head-to-heads are next. And you guys, I don't know, Patrick, if you treat it this way, but we spend so much time on the outrights because that's fun. Who's going to win the Masters? Who's going to win this or whatever? The outright market is actually my smallest market of risk because it's the biggest crapshoot there is. It's the needle in the haystack. My smallest money wagered is in the outright market. I will then bet 2 or 3 times that amount on the top 20 finish stuff. And then my largest bet, a full unit or maybe more or whatever, is going to be on the head-to-head matchups. So
Yeah.
that's where you have the best chance to win. The glories with the outrights, the profitabilities with the head-to-heads.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think Patrick mentioned one head-to-head. Do you have some head-to-heads that we're going to be exactly?
I have not. I have only glanced at the board, and like I
Okay.
say, I'm sure I can tell you this: a couple guys I have in mind to fade. Patrick talked about Max Homa, and Rasmus Højgaard and what have you. Matt Fitzpatrick. I agree with all that. I'm going to probably try and find some matchups where I can go against Sam Burns and Nick Dunlap. Those are two guys that I have penciled in that I want to try and find a way to go against. Neither guy has been in that great a form. And Burns has never really done well at the Masters before. Dunlap, I believe, only playing in his second one, so a lack of experience there as well. We'll see if I end up going there, but those are two guys I may want to try and find a matchup where I can go against them. The other matchup that I think is available just about everywhere that I've seen, and I was kind of surprised by the price, Scotty Scheffler against Rory McIlroy, and I think McIlroy was in the neighborhood of like close to plus 140 or something, plus 135, I think at a minimum. Maybe he was even closer to plus 150. It seemed like Scotty was minus 175 or something. I can't say for sure, but I was surprised. I mean, I think some people could argue Rory should be the favorite in that matchup right now. So I don't know if I'm going to play it, but the value there, because I haven't dived in head first, but at first glance, that was pretty interesting to see Rory at such a big plus price against Scotty.
Yeah, because I'm seeing 18-hole matchups and then tournament matchups. I'm not seeing Rory on any of these on DraftKings. I'm thinking that some of these matchups might still be coming out, right? I'm not sure if they're.
Yeah. Tuesday afternoon. But the thing about the Masters is typically stuff is populated very quickly because the futures board has been up for a year, right?
Right.
But yeah, in a typical tournament week, the matchups typically don't come out until Tuesday afternoon. So there could be some delay there for some of the books. Yes.
Well, they have Scotty against Colin, and Scotty's minus 230. So if you think Colin can beat him, that's an interesting one at plus 165 because I already like Morikawa myself a little bit, so I find that interesting. Have you looked at many more matchups, Patrick?
So the Nikolai over Rasmus is for the top Danish player. So that's a nationality prop. But I did just go through the board right now and kind of like I talked about before, fading Matt Fitzpatrick. So JJ Spawn is minus 130 over Matthew Fitzpatrick, who is even money. Spawn missing the cut 2 weeks ago at the Texas Children's Houston Open, but finished second at the Players and second at the Cognizant Classic. So some pretty good form heading into this event. He's played well this year overall, has played in the Masters just once before back in 2022 where he finished T23. This is not so much a play on Spawn. It's just more so, again, fading Fitzpatrick in this matchup. He's just been lost this year. So Spawn at minus 130 over Matt Fitzpatrick is certainly a matchup I'll probably add to the card as well.
Okay. There you go. Add that to the card. That's fun, and we'll be looking for some more of these. And I'm sure you guys will be releasing more and more of your great information as the week goes on. Brady, where could our listeners and viewers get your great information and media for the weekend?
Well, of course, right here on your podcast, The Odds Breakers. I'm sure that will be reposted in a number of different social channels. I appreciate you having me on once again. I think we did the same thing last year, if I recall. But you can find my article at golf.com. Goes into greater detail about all the outright selections, the contenders, and the long shots that I've taken. And then also on Sports Grid throughout the week. I'll be on Sports Grid probably every day between now and Sunday, I would imagine. I know I'm going on later this afternoon. So Sirius XM channel 159 and anywhere you stream on TV and all that good stuff, Sports Grid will be heavy with Masters coverage for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Gabe will be talking about it. We love going on there as well.
Yeah,
Patrick,
yeah.
what
I'll
about
be
you,
on with
Patrick?
Gabe. I go on with Gabe on Wednesday nights. He and Cam are hilarious. They're great.
They are a hoot, man. I love going out with those guys as well. Patrick, how about you? Where can we get your great information and plays?
Yeah, my master's article has been up on theoddsbreakers.com, so be sure to check that out.
Yes, and it's the most detailed golf post that we have ever, because Patrick is amazing at it. And if you want to know pretty much almost about every blade of grass, it's almost right there.
That's
Patrick
not
Brady.
necessarily exaggerating.
Yeah.
That is. I have to say, I think it is certainly the most thorough article I've seen this season, maybe ever. Great job.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And you guys are wonderful. We'll be talking soon. Best of luck on your plays.